Hi everyone. We're recording this on July 4th. Happy 4th of July, and to everyone else who doesn't celebrate that very American holiday. Hope you're having a good week. Welcome to Third Coast Gaming Impressions. I think it's episode 34. That sounds like a number. That could be right.
It's probably close enough.
Yeah, it's Austin Taylor. Hello.
Hi.
How's it going? What's up, dog?
Nothing much. I'm just sort of anxiously waiting for my neighbors to start setting off explosives in the street while I have to corral my dogs around the house so that way they're not just shaking in the entryway.
Oh yes, I missed my puppers for 4th of July since I'm no longer in my home city. But I was at
Yep.
work and it was super chill, and I was browsing the internet all day. What else was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I got off work and that feel when there's like people hanging out at the pool at the apartment and they're listening to music that makes me feel old. That reminds me of high school. I was just like, oh, it was whatever song was in Far Cry, the opening of Far Cry 3, which is like a song that
I
cannot come to
yeah.
memory unless you really think about it. I'm trying to remember what that fucking song. It's like a very popular 2012, 2011 like
Yeah,
party
like
song. Is it Paper Planes? It's got to be Paper
I
Planes.
I don't know. I don't even know which one that is.
Just let me throw you this link. It's like you'll know the song when you listen to it. Ads, ads, ads. It's like in every Judd Apatow movie, and
Oh, yeah.
uh huh, uh huh. If you catch me at the border, I got the visas in my name because I got the papers. I guess I don't know. I that was playing, and I was just like, I was listening. I was like, I feel old. I'm gonna go up to my apartment and take a nap. So that's what I did for a little bit. It's
I really think
fine.
people would have moved on to better musicians than MIA, but
Yeah, I guess it
that's
was on the
just me.
radio. It's 4th of July. There's millennials out there having a party.
Yeah. Woot woot.
Yeah, whoop whoop.
Uh,
I felt as old as I did when I booted up Far Cry 3 the other day, and that song played in the intro, and I was like, Jesus Christ, is this what people were thinking was cool?
mm-hmm.
But I mean, that song is like the perfect way to jokingly start a game about really shitty people partying on an island, or they're supposed to be shitty people. I don't remember how they resolved that shit, but it doesn't
I
matter.
mean, they're pretty shitty kids. Like the only like you open up Far Cry 3 and it's the cool guy, Grant, who's your brother who's returned from the armed forces, is like the cool dude as like your main character's freaking out through that entire intro until Grant gets got. Um
Yeah.
and you spend that entire game like rescuing all of like your buds and your ex-girlfriend, uh, who when you meet them are various degrees of like, whoa, Jason, you just did some gnarly stuff, bro. And also like, Jason, that was really crazy. That's scary that you killed like 8 people. That kind of thing.
Whoa, bro! Very on track for the 4th of July. Yeah, when I played that opening, Grant was just like, "I'm in the military. I can get us out of this shit." And then he gets shot. I was
And then
like,
he
"All
gets
right." Then he
shot.
gets shot. All right.
And you could tell Grant had some skills because he had tattoos on his arm.
Oh yeah, that's true. I was thinking
But
about
you
that when I saw those tattoos. Actually, Austin.
but you eventually you surpass Grant with the number of
Sick
appropriately
tribal
tribal
tattoos.
tattoos
Yeah.
you
Yes.
get.
Yeah. Of either the shark or the cougar or the whatever the
Uh,
the fucking other animal is.
to
So there's like
denote your power.
yeah, because that game has like what is it like three skill trees, two skill trees that are like coinciding with a different animal that are like it looks like a tattoo slowly evolving as you're like putting points into it.
Yeah.
Fuck video games, man. All right, you bought Stalker. Stalker Two's coming out. Tell me about Stalker, man. Okay, preface.
Yeah.
Go for it. Yeah, just go for it. What's up with
Um.
Stalker?
Yeah. So Stalker is a like game series about a sort of, from my understanding anyway, a sort of apocalypse that happens that takes you to like the sort of Chernobyl exclusion zone, right? Which is sort of where, the reactor at Chernobyl like went into meltdown and radiation flooded like that entire area of the Soviet Union, leading to the deaths of hundreds of people and like the sort of uh, degradation of a couple of thousand people's like health in the long term.
And it's like very. I remember it being that like this setting was very popularized by that. There's like an older movie about Chernobyl, like the fallout of Chernobyl, that I can't.
There's so many.
Yeah, it's from. It's like
I
in
mean,
black
it
and white, I think.
yeah, like I mean, the thing is like the Chernobyl disaster is just such a handy little piece of like capitalist propaganda to be like, oh, see, look, communism failed because they built such a terrible structure. We never had anything like this happen in America, right?
Yeah,
So the Chernobyl disaster was like appropriated, it was like sort of appropriated by the U.S. to be like a very pro-capitalist thing at the time.
I can't. It's like it was like some Russian director too who did this movie.
Yeah,
But I don't know.
like
I know Chernobyl or Stalker at least is like the the game that PC gamers like will love to tell you about like how incredible it is. And
yeah,
I there's like a guy who had a YouTube channel. His name's Splattercat, and I remember watching him play a bunch of Stalker, and I was like, I don't understand this. Is this kind of a it's kind of a Fallout game,
yeah. It's I
right?
mean, it's yeah, Fallout and again like the sense of post-nuclear apocalypse. But like the one I opened up was because there's like they're calling this new one Stalker 2, and I'm not entirely sure why. But the ones that I opened up, the ones I bought were Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl and Stalker Call of Pripyat. And I'm probably never going to say that town name right, but Pripyat being the sort of the town that was constructed around the Chernobyl. Probably not constructed around, but next to the Chernobyl reactor. Um, So I opened up Shadow of Chernobyl, and it like instantly starts with lightning coming down on a vehicle your dude's in, and you being picked up by some guy because your life. He takes you to a merchant who heals you, and the merchant's like, "Hey, you owe me, so now I need you to do some work." Uh, and then you walk out of this like bunker that this trader's holed up in, and immediately like the game wants you to like understand like the space that you're in and also like the the sort of the actions that you are like ready to take, right? It is a game where if you point a gun at an NPC as you're going to go talk to them, they will whip out a gun and point at you.
Yeah,
Uh,
like I think of this game as like when I think about Fallout and Skyrim is that they're these RPGs where you're constantly interacting with things and like more than normal video games would, I guess.
yeah, like I mean, sure. Like the thing about Stalker though is it's a lot more crunchier than like Fallout, even in the days of like Fallout 2. You know, you have to manage a lot more in Stalker than like you ever really have to manage in like Fallout. Mostly with Fallout being like the thing you need to manage is those like sort of I guess abstract game system you need to manage in Fallout is probably radiation. Um, in like Fallout 3 and New Vegas. In Stalker, you do need to measure radiation, but the other thing is you have, for instance, anomalies that pop up, and anomalies are these weird distortion effects that you see as you're walking around the world. And if you like if you enter these sort of areas where these anomalies are taking place, you're dead. Like you will become many slabs of meat. Um, and what you have to do in order to see these anomalies is like you have to take a this little like artifact, this small metal tube, and you have to throw it in front of you to trigger the anomaly. Just in that way you can identify where the anomaly is, more so than like put a stop to it or anything. Because
Yeah.
once you chart it, it's just like, okay, now I know not to walk. Like I need to walk around this area. Like there's an instance where you are going through a tunnel. This is one of like the earlier, I guess, story camp like missions. because it's one of those games where you get a journal and then you get a series of missions you get to do. You're going through a tunnel, and this anomaly has taken up sort of residence there, and it's a bit different than others because most of the ones that you've seen so far are just like these air distortions, whereas this anomaly is like lightning that travels across the water of this like drainage ditch that you're trying to walk in, and you need to like time where the anomaly is like located in this ditch, so that way you can try to walk around it so it doesn't like electrocute you. Because
Huh.
if it sparks and sort of goes off, it will electrocute all of the water in the ditch, not just like where it is. So
Yeah.
you're basically stealthing, like you're doing a stealth segment involving lightning.
Wild. I remember, speaking of like the throwing objects at the anomaly to see if it's there and shit. It's like, Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl had that trailer during the E3 week,
Yeah,
which is going to come out now. That was a really cool moment in that trailer, and I'm excited to see what, like a Stalker on a modern console would look like. That'd be interesting. Oh, I figured out the name of the movie I was thinking of. It's Stalker by Tarkovsky,
that's
of the same name.
Yep.
But
I've never actually seen Stalker is the thing.
I haven't seen it either. But there's some YouTuber had it like a documentary talking about like Stalker and like the Stalker video game, and then talked a little bit about like post-apocalyptic video games. Stalker is a weird fucking movie. I think I watched 10 or 15 minutes of it. That movie is just dudes walking around in, the what would you say it was, the inclusion zone or the
The exclusion zone.
exclusion zone? They're walking around the exclusion zone. They live there pretty much, and there's just a bunch of weird shit that goes on in this movie. I don't know. I hear it's interesting. I should go back and watch it at some point, or actually watch it. Yeah, that's cool. Figured out
Yeah,
what it was. Like that and
yeah.
a
So
boy
it's
and his
from the.
dog are things I think about when I think about Stalker
I
and
had a
Fallout.
feeling, like I remember seeing stills of like the movie Stalker, but for whatever reason, I never sort of did the very, admittedly, very like small mental gymnastics someone would have to do to like put the two and two together.
Well, it is a 1979 Russian fucking movie that like only comes up when you're talking about like, I would say like art movies or some shit. So yes, fucking Tarkovsky's weird. There's some other shit that he's done that I'm like
Yeah,
seen.
I'm
So
I'm
you said
pretty.
you played about an hour of Stalker, right? What
Yeah.
else? What else was going on? What else did you take a look at?
Yeah, so like the first things that you're introduced to are, like the gunplay of Stalker is this um like I want to say like it is what you'd expect from like a late 2010s like PC shooter, right? Like everything kind of has this weight to it. You have to be very deliberate with where you're, putting your shots because you don't have that much ammo, um, sort of thing. There are definitely like there are factions roaming about the zone, right? Because you yourself are a stalker. Um, you're part of that faction, though you suffer from amnesia and you're looking for some dude. You also have, I guess, the greater sort of bandit faction, which seems to just be people you can shoot without having a problem, really. And then you also have the military, and the military like being like a faction of much more heavily armed people than you, because at the start of the game you have a pistol and maybe a double barrel shotgun if you can find one on the ground after you've like done a bandit encounter, whereas these people have assault rifles. So most of like how you're moving about in this world is a mixture of trying to avoid hostile humans and also deal with the kind of hard to read animal like wildlife here, because so far what I've encountered are dogs and boars, and of course
Yeah,
everything here is mutated. So like the dogs are all like they all look very hungry, and the boars are also a lot bigger than like most boars that I'm familiar with anyway. So
yeah. What I would call roving bands of fucking animals trying to murder you, which is
yeah,
like a part of like, I think of like emergent gameplay and like Stalker is the thing that like comes up in my mind a lot. Cause like
Yeah,
there's like side shit in this game that just you just kind of stumble into, right?
yeah.
Like
Because
that
most of
shit
the side
just
stuff,
happens.
like most of the side stuff you'll find is like so far it's been pretty like guided, but like once you get out of this like opening, it's it's noticeably less guided, or at least that's my understanding of it. There's a lot of like this world is kind of clockwork, right? Like you have people in this world who like have stuff they're doing and will continue to do that stuff with or without your involvement. Um, like the world doesn't like wait for you, and I think that's kind of one of the more interesting things about Stalker is that the world is like continuously moving on without you. Um, though you can like inflict your will upon it, it's not going to wait for you in the way that most like open world um, RPGs do. Like for instance, one of the things I got was a side quest to clear out like some boar, like a boar nest, right? And like side quests, you have side quests for like a couple of days, like maybe. Like this boar specific one was like one day. You have one day to clear this out before the guy gives it to someone else to take care of. Um, I don't know if main quests will be like that. I'm not entirely. I doubt they will be because I'm sure they still want to have that structure. But it's going to be interesting to see how main quests sort of kick up once you get out of this opening.
Yeah, and I know when people like talk about this game, it's like a lot of like the open world's really cool. And like I remember like looking at it, like the inventory space even was like something that was very like threatening to me, where you just have this like you have this box of just cubes that you're putting your stuff in. Like the guns are like 2 or 3 cubes long, and you just have this
Yeah,
like weird inventory space where you're like, oh, if you run out, you just gotta throw some shit away. That's
yeah.
it.
It's like it's inventory like circa like Infinity Engine RPGs, right? Like it's your kind of like your Baldur's Gate thing where you have a limited space, but you also have weight that you need to be aware of. Um, like you will become over encumbered if you're carrying too much, and you can pretty easily carry too much in this game. So the thing that you need to be
Yeah.
doing is constantly like if you're looking for something like from like a trader or something, you also have to be like trading stuff off. Because to my understanding, there's no currency that I've seen so far or been able to interact with yet. Like I went to the trader who sort of nurses you back to health. I went to him to get some medicine, some anti-radiation medication, and like while I was there, I found that he had like a slightly better pistol than the one I currently had. Um, so I wanted all those things. So I had to like comb through my inventory to look for like these artifacts that seem to be like byproducts of the anomaly and these of like anomalies. And the thing about these is these artifacts. I think at some point you might be able to equip them because as I was looking at them, it's like okay, like you use this and you will take like 5 points off your radiation cap, um, kind of thing. But like I've not at a point where I've had to interact with those yet in a real way, so I just sold them off because they're also worth quite a bit apparently. So I sold those off to get all the supplies I needed. But then I also had to sell off like other stuff I had on me because like with those added on supplies, I weighed too much and I just had to like go through and be like, I probably don't need this Stalker branded energy drink, and I got rid of like
It's
8 of
funny.
those.
Very funny. This game is also interesting because like I think it very well did influence like Escape from Tarkov or like PUBG, just like you being in like this desolate Russian fucking area, or even like Warzone. I think Warzone takes place in like the Call of Duty Warzone like battle royale is like in a Russian like city where nobody goes there anymore.
I mean, yeah, I think like the influence of Stalker is like is wild. Like I don't think it can necessarily be overstated on like the kind of impact that Stalker probably has on the way that we like build like or the way that certain developers like build apocalypse narratives, right? Like I don't know if like a game like Metro Exodus looks the same if like we don't have Stalker. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
and and just like the way that this works, like you have also just a really interesting like multiplayer modes within Stalker because like there is a PvP component here. Um, in this game, I'm probably never gonna mess with it because it's not what I'm particularly interested in. But like the PvP is seemingly like pretty deep in the modes it has available and like how you as a player get to interact with those. Um,
Is it like a DayZ thing where they just throw you in an area and you're just playing until you die or
I mean,
something?
reading the manual, it seems like there's a mode like that.
Because I
Um,
used to binge those fucking when those when those DayZ mods were getting really popular, where it was just a guy going in trying to loot stuff, and you're on a server with like 20 other people, and like these people might just murder me and steal my shit. Who knows?
yeah, I don't know if it's like I don't know if their multiplayer modes are gonna have that kind of um, permanence that like certain lobbies in something like DayZ have. These all seem like dedicated instances from the way that I'm reading this manual, but I mean, it seems a little wild, especially with like how you interact with like weather here. It's interesting what I'm reading so far. I'm never gonna play this part of the game because I have no interest in it, but it is interesting.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you popped right into another very influential game to me. Is like Fallout New
Yeah,
Vegas, like Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, when those were like those must have come out like from a year and a half to each other. But those are some fucking games, man.
yeah, yeah, and this kind of like that kind of like rolls into it because like I was playing Stalker and I had like podcasts. I was waiting to see if there'd be a point where I could just put on a podcast while I'm playing this. But something to note about Shadow of Chernobyl is there are points in the game where like a floppy disk icon shows up on like the bottom right hand corner of the screen, and because of modern games, I was under the impression that this was an autosave icon. So I had the one save that I had made like a solid like 30 minutes before where I quit. Um, because I was assuming the game was autosaving the whole time. It wasn't. I did some random quest I got to go talk to a guy. I gave him a med kit, healed him, and then while I was in like the conversation window, because the other thing about this game is it doesn't pause. It's kind of like Oblivion in that way. Um, and while I was like in this conversation window, the guy starts like turning around pretty violently. He whips out his gun, and I close that window as soon as I can. I turn to my right, and there's just four dogs, and they kill me very quickly. And in the
Ravenous.
game, yeah, and the game kicked me back to like my save that was like almost like pretty much 30 minutes ago
Oh,
because
the
that was the
game
only
telling you to get fucked, I guess.
yeah, because there's no autosave feature. It's not an autosave feature. I think it's just telling you that like the game's loading some stuff. Um, because that floppy disk icon is not an autosave, and I learned that the hard way. So I did just go into Fallout New Vegas afterwards because I
Yeah.
didn't want to do that again, and I just kind of wanted to sit back and listen to a podcast for a little
So did
bit.
you make a new game, or are you picking up an old save?
This is this save. This is an older save. It's not like one where I finished the game, but it is like relatively. It's relatively fresh compared to my first playthrough. I think I'm still. I don't think I've gotten to New Vegas yet.
Man, New Vegas has so much charm that was like you go back and it's like you play a little bit of 3 and a little bit of New Vegas, like, oh wow, there's just so much more character in New Vegas.
Well, I mean, yeah,
Which is like
Like New Vegas starts you out, and it gives you a quest to go in the other direction. But like from the first town you start in, Good Springs, you go to the graveyard where you were found, and you can just see New Vegas in the distance.
I think it
Like
also helps that they didn't have to like build the engine for Fallout 3 from you know
mm,
there
I
was probably time in Fallout 3 where they were having to get that together and then start putting their open world and stuff around it.
I mean,
I
we'll
just
be
think about the
very
development a little differently.
like we can be very clear here. Like I don't think this engine was necessarily a boon for Obsidian when they developed this game.
No,
Like New
no.
Vegas was notably a mess when it came out.
Oh, and
Like
yeah, and three as well.
yeah, but
messy.
like New Vegas was broken in such a way. Like New Vegas is probably, to my understanding, is the first time that like you hear stories of like games on on Bethesda's engine where on like the PlayStation version of it, the save file can get too big, um, to the point where your game either continuously crashes or it just takes forever to load. Like New Vegas, when it came out, was so broken and like messy that like that fundamentally changed the way Obsidian makes games.
Yeah, I believe that too. Because at some point you're like, Obsidian is just kind of handed this engine, be like, hey, go make a sequel to this while we go make Skyrim, and they're just like, all right. I mean, it came out. Besides it being buggy, like fucking, for 2010, like these games are like so different from anything else that was coming out at around that time, or I think even stuff besides other Bethesda stuff. You never saw open world games like this. I think there's more of them now.
I mean, yeah, like these open world games like do like in a real way like these games, but mostly Skyrim, do sort of bring about this complete like change in like the way that like we look at open worlds and the way that people want to interact with open worlds in games. And they also just make these like they make things that like that were in your Infinity Engine RPGs. They make it seem so much more appealing, right? Like the view of like what you see in New Vegas, it looks more interesting than stuff that you'll find in like in like a Planescape tournament
Yeah.
on like on a sort of first impression, right? What people want from games, what people have proven they want from games, you can probably see more of in New Vegas at first glance than you can find in a Planescape tournament deal.
Yeah. Well, to talk about the fun stuff is what I got three questions. What kind of shenanigans did you get up to? Who's your companion? And what kind of weapons do you have with you, Austin? Let's go.
Oh well, I mean, this playthrough is mostly like I was looking at the skills I made for this character, or like the way I spec this character, and like they are very much like they are a gun person. They are, but like specifically like black powder, like gunpowder guns. Like they don't use lasers. They don't use melee weapons. So I'm running around with like a variety of pistols and repeater rifles. And also just like having 9 of each in my inventory so I can continuously repair my guns.
Yeah, and this is the one that you could aim down sights, actually, right? If
Yeah,
I'm remembering correctly, because
this
three,
was the big
you
feature.
kind of zoomed into the gun model.
Yeah, you looked at the gun a bit closer. It's like, is this me zooming? And you still had that very small little reticle, um, that Bethesda puts in their games, but yeah, so New Vegas is the one where it's like you can aim down the sights of the gun this time. It's
Like, I remember when you have a repeater for the first time and you're aiming down the sights. I'm like, oh, this is cool. In a
Yeah,
Fallout game, what's going on? I'm fucking into it.
this is almost a scope. Yeah, and you can also like mod scopes onto guns now.
And mods are good in this game. Ugh,
Yeah, mods.
this is on my Xbox. I should just play it too.
Yeah, mods in New
Fucking
Vegas are good.
fuck.
And I mean mods as in parts you put onto guns, not necessarily mods to improve the gameplay. I haven't modded this game, and that's partially because there's no official Steam Workshop support. Probably because it'd be on Bethesda to do it, and Bethesda doesn't seem to want to acknowledge this game in any way. Uh,
Yeah, it's unfortunate because it's better than. Some would say it's better than Fallout 4. As a
I
person who's only a couple hours in Fallout 4, I can't make that statement, but I've
I
heard
can.
word around the bush.
It's a it's a real
Hey,
er,
I got a pitch for you, Austin. What if
what's up?
instead of Obsidian's, I don't remember the name of the sequel that got announced at the E3, but what if they were just making a post-apocalyptic in the in and around Nevada open world game instead
I mean, I
of
wouldn't necessarily be that interested in seeing more like apocalypse narratives from Obsidian. I think New Vegas is fun. It's interesting. Its main story is kind of and I'm not particularly keen on its main narrative. I think when it knows the actors that are at play, being the the New California Republic, who are just the overly bureaucratic government that's moving in, trying to move in Nevada. Caesar's Legion, who are a band of killers and slave owners, and Mr. House being like the ultra capitalist who wants to keep New Vegas free so he can keep making money off of it. Um, when the game knows that these three actors all kind of suck, it's cool. But like the ending of the game that you get by acknowledging that those three factions are all terrible is also not particularly interesting. So I don't know if I'd be interested in seeing them retread uh, a Fallout
Yeah.
New Vegas.
Well, that's what comes down to it with like Bethesda games and stuff. Sometimes like my fondest memories of 3 and New Vegas even more are just like me wandering this space and doing side missions and just fucking around. And I think New Vegas has like a lot of. I had fun memories of just fucking around in New Vegas, but
Yeah.
I think there's probably some of that in Outer Worlds.
Eh,
I think the setting is just fun. Is a fun way in New Vegas, and
I
I
mean,
hope at some point when they're if Obsidian has like 2 studios working on stuff at the same time, they make a something the same size as Outer Worlds for like a new for the New Vegas fans out there.
I would I would need to see them do something very different than what they were doing in the Outer Worlds. Because there is nothing about the Outer Worlds that I think is particularly interesting. I don't think its quest design is that interesting. I don't think its world design is particularly interesting. It's weird how easy it is to get lost in that game when the areas that you walk around in are no bigger than what you'd find in like a Knights of the Old Republic 2. Uh, but you can get lost in the Outer Worlds very easily because it's like the pathing on that map is not particularly helpful, and there's no and like quest objectives and like markers and like the things that you need to interact with in the world all kind of blend into each other. It's hard to know like what you actually need to be finding for any one thing. So I would need to see them do something very different. Like I would need to see what how like Avowed looks, right? Now that they
Yeah.
made some progress, I would need to see what like the second Outer Worlds looks like, and I'm not even particularly keen on seeing that.
Well, I hope that what ends up happening is that like for Obsidian is that the Outer Worlds one was just kind of like a test of them trying to get their engine together, and like I hope a sequel would like fix the things they were talking about, but I don't know. We won't know until that game comes out. Hope I thinking it's coming to Game Pass. I think the second one is.
I mean, of course
Like
it
the
is.
first one was launched on Game Pass too, if I remember.
Yeah, so like the
That how
first
it
one
would.
was, yeah, the first one launched on Game Pass, even though it was published by Private Division. Like the second one is going to be published by Microsoft.
Yeah, and I forgot Avowed was a thing. Oh yeah, that got announced a couple years ago. I haven't thought about it. That's
Well, there
probably
had,
why.
yeah, there hasn't been anything. They showed us that little teaser, and we're like, okay, now we did a Fallout. Now we're doing an Elder Scrolls.
Yeah,
Um,
it's in first person, and you have magic in one hand, you have the
yeah,
sword in the other, and then
yeah,
it cuts to black.
it's straight up the like the project lead on Pillars of Eternity, Jesse Sawyer or Josh Sawyer. I don't know why did I say Jesse Sawyer. Josh Sawyer. Had a sort of a Pillars of Eternity 2 postmortem on his Tumblr. And something he mentioned was that in order to justify making a follow up to Pillars of Eternity, or being able to make a follow up to Pillars of Eternity, they would need to drastically change the direction of that series in a very real way. And Avowed looks like it's going to be the sort of experiment for that because it is set in the world of Pillars of Eternity.
Yeah.
But now it's all
Oh,
like
okay.
your first person now, and Magic probably works a bit differently. And it wants to be more about, it seems it wants to be about like you coming to power in this
Yeah.
world.
I other Obsidian games. I forgot they made Grounded, that survival.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yeah.
thing.
I
Yeah.
forgot that came out 2 years ago. I don't know.
I don't know.
Someone's into that game. I don't have. I don't play video games with people. That game seems like it wouldn't be as fun. And the solo. Oh, and Stick of Truth. Stick of Truth is interesting.
Yeah, they made
Yeah.
that first South Park game, and they're like,
Yeah.
and after that, they're like, we're never doing contract work again.
Yeah.
Um,
I would believe it. I heard they got rushed a little in that game.
well, I mean, yeah, it got rushed a bit, and then afterwards, Ubisoft went and made that second game with their own internal studio.
Oh
So
yeah. Here's the line: is the rights to Stick of Truth were auctioned in December 2012, and Obsidian wasn't made aware of it until it was announced.
yeah,
Uh, yeah.
yeah. So they were
Sounds about
notably
right.
not into doing
Yeah.
contract work after that situation.
Hey, Microsoft picked them up, and I hope they
Well, I mean, yeah, the thing
I
that
hope they get a little better whatchamacallit idea of how to make like their bigger open world stuff, along with like the Pillars of Eternity fan whose name is Austin Taylor could use more Pillars of Eternity. Give him the game,
Well, I mean, yeah,
Obsidian.
I don't even know if it's necessarily like an idea of how to build it as much as it's just resources. Like Obsidian's not a particularly large studio. Pillars barely saved them after a pretty intense round of layoffs. Like that's like the legacy of that first Pillars of Eternity game, is that it allowed Obsidian to
Yeah.
keep their doors open.
Well, I'm glad Microsoft picked them up. That's we're there. There's like an arms race. We'll get into it when we talk about news, but like PlayStation picked up their Returnal studio. Microsoft is like picking up some people and fucking God, they spent so much money on Bethesda, but
Oh yeah.
yeah, that's cool. I will, out of curiosity in the way you talk about Outer Worlds, I just want to try it because I was very curious about that when it came out, but I just hadn't had time to it.
Yeah.
I like Obsidian.
I mean, I like
I
Obsidian too.
yeah. Hey, I might have a that game might hit me differently. I don't know. I'm just curious about it. I might have fun with it. I might not.
Yeah.
Video games.
I mean, I imagine your people are capable of finding fun in it. If they weren't, they wouldn't be making a second one.
Yeah. Let's see, what did I play? I got a little farther in Far Cry. It's still fun. I
Which one is this? Is this still
it's
five?
far Yeah, it's still 5. Okay, Far Cry 5. Still Far Cry. I went and all the Far Cry games were on sale, and they were all on sale, and I went off and I was like, I'm just gonna go spend $40, and
Yeah,
I bought all those games,
go
Austin.
at it. Buy some Far Cry.
Yeah,
Shoot some
yeah,
people, and ride a
yeah,
tiger.
yeah. I like Far Cry. Okay, I bought all of them, not brought. But I got 1 and 2 because they were just on the Xbox. I was like, I'll probably set something on fire in 2 at some point. Because I played a decent amount of 2 like before 3 had come out because I just heard it was like a open world game where you shot people.
Yeah.
And remembered like, oh yeah, your gun's just broke in that game and you just have malaria in the beginning. And like you have just a capability of you having like one of like 5 starter characters. Like your character is different every time you start a new game. I think I got the Irish guy on the first roll or something.
Mm.
Yeah, that game's weird too. But yeah, I got Blood Dragon on 4 and the I think it's New Dawn, whatever the Far Cry 5
Yeah.
expansion,
Yeah, it's New Dawn.
like smaller thing that uses Far Cry 5 map. But 5 has been interesting. I beat because it's like 3 areas in Far Cry 5 and they're all a different general. I did the one. He's like the little brother who runs like a TV station or something. And when that game started picking you up, because you're fucking around these areas and you're breaking these characters like chokeholds on these areas, like you're destroying their compounds and you're destroying their resources, they will put you to sleep and drag you off somewhere and try to capture you and make you get into a cutscene where you talk to these people.
Yeah.
After that game had done that enough in the other areas, I was like, I have to go to bed in like 20 minutes in one time when I was doing one, and I was trying to do a side mission, and it just picked me up, and I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, Far Cry, I'm gonna skip every cutscene because of this. So every time I get picked up for some shit like that, I'm just gonna start skipping all the cutscenes. I'm gonna teach Far Cry a lesson, Austin. But yeah.
You should. There's no substance in anything that they're talking about.
Yeah, the I don't really remember what had happened too much in the let me pull up the name of this dude. He's like he's like the preacher.
So John,
I think his name is John Seed.
John Seed, yeah.
Yeah, he's got sunglasses, and you fight him he runs off in his plane, and you go chase him, and then he lands, and you can shoot him while he's landing. That, like, the last mission of your fight against him was pretty fun, and now I'm like messing around in I get either the sister or the daughter or whatever, Faith's area. I don't know if they're like the kids of the main bad guy or like they're related or something.
They're the family.
Yeah, they're the family. That's all I know about.
The vague sort of family of that game. Yeah, so he's the guy that that drags you into the church, right?
Yeah, he drags you into a church, and there's stuff going on in this church, and they're like writing the different like types of sins on people, like they're carving it with a knife and then pulling it off or whatever, and then like stapling it to like the inside of a church. And I was like, this is weird. I don't care. It's like, I'm gonna compare it to like the Fallout thing where I enjoy the side content way more in these games and like the running around the open world in the main story. Like, I do like New Vegas's and Fallout 3's main story like more than the main story of Far Cry 5. But all the side stuff has been cool. Like, I met he's a companion who's in all the other Far Cry games, and he has a rocket.
Herc.
Ringing a bell at all?
Yeah, his name's Herc, isn't it?
Yeah, he's kind of he's an idiot, and he's fun to, because you can have up to 2 companions, and they'll start kind of talking to each other with their like, what would you call it, like neutral dialogue or whatever when you're just in the open world. So he's just talking to people, and all these like character missions where you're going on like a side mission that's scripted around this character has been fun. And I got Cheeseburger the Bear, and it's a good time. But I'm remembering why I gave up on this game the first time is like, I think the shooting has something to be desired from, or like is missing something. Like, I think when you aim down sights with a gun, it's not close enough to the reticle. It's kind of like a little farther forward, and the reticle is kind of small when you're looking at it. Compared to like, like a Call of Duty, when you aim down at a reticle, you're like, it like snaps you right in there. Or like the bullet magnetism's a little off. But besides, like I think about this game and Rage 2 a lot because they came out like within a year-ish of each other, maybe a little more. Like, I love Rage 2's gameplay because like id made that. But I think the open world and like the characters and shit are way more fun in this game. So that's like how I've been with Far Cry. And then I played like a little bit of Mafia 3, and I was like, oh yeah, this game's got a cool open world too.
Yeah, another open world. Mafia.
Yeah, Mafia's cool because it's like, whereas in Far Cry you're kind of on your own trying to tackle shit, in Mafia 3 you're building up this like your little group of an empire, because you're taking territories from other gangs in the area in like, what is it, 60s or 70s?
It's post Vietnam, so I think it's late 70s.
So yeah, the main character's coming back from Vietnam, and he's helping or trying to take over or something, and there's kind of like a documentary style thing that comes alongside of it where people are talking about the character in the
Yeah,
future as if he had accomplished this already. What's his
yeah.
name?
His name is Lincoln
Lincoln Clay.
Clay.
Lincoln
Yeah,
Clay is a cool dude,
it's a re
and yeah, go for it.
I was just gonna say like the conceit of like this sort of like documentary like post-mortem of like how most of the story is being presented to you is like a pretty cool conceit that I think that game does really well.
And the voice acting is pretty good, and I like how like the main story of this game kind of is interesting enough. Like I only played for a couple hours because I felt like messing around and driving around in it. But like the couple of people I hung out with and did missions for, I was like, oh, this is cool. It's got that mafia banter that you like from like those kind of movies where they're talking about